Averaged 245 with the bat that series. Averaged 11 with the ball. Man of the match, man of the series. Never played again. You know what the moral of the story is?
What's the moral?
Don't run out your captain. I call it my light bulb moment. Go into my room and get a knock on the door. Open the door. It's Mark Taylor. G'day, Dizzy. I'm Tubby. Right? And I'm going, I'm on nickname basis with the Australian cricket captain.
That's so good. That was you in full flow when you had that mullet.
I remember chatting to Adam Gilchrist. We were bemoaning the fact there were no mullets left in cricket. So I might have been a few beers in. I said, stuff it. I'm going to grow one. That's how it started. So blame Gilly.
Oh, there's a collision. Oh, a dreadful collision down there.
Everyone went to Steve. He had blood pouring out of his nose and stuff. I broke my tibia. I actually broke my right wrist as well.
The 200 Diz, it goes down as one of those much talked about moments in the history of Australian cricket.
Well, I remember going from 90 to 100. I'd never been in that position in my life.
So not even as a kid you haven't made 100. How are the boys receiving you? Because you're coming in and out of breaks.
Oh, there's a bit of disbelief. Yeah. That's fair to say.
So you take over as coach of Pakistan. What happened?
I got a group text literally an hour after the game. We lost the game. A new selection panel had been picked and they're picking the squad for the next test. Head coaches are no longer involved at all in selection.
Just by text?
Group text. Just completely flipped the script. Wicket was completely scraped.
Scraped nails?
I saw him do it. And that was on the insistence of the selectors.
How did his passing affect you?
Just in disbelief. Like, we just couldn't believe it.
Well, this is an episode we've been trying to cook up for a while. My man, the number one statistician in the world, says, when are you getting Dizzy on? That is the great Laurie Colliver. Finally, it has happened, Diz. It's great to see you. Look fit, you look fire, mate. And it's, I'm a big fan of your work, so it's nice to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks, Howie. I'm a big fan of your work, mate.
Geez, we're good, aren't we?
Mutual appreciation, mate. So,
Cheers, we're good.
I've been looking forward to it.
Hey, mate, you're over in Melbourne.
Yep.
We were just having a chat off air, and you're going into the memorabilia space with a bit of your gear, which tell me about it, but then I want to ask you about some of the items you have and what they mean to you, I guess.
Yeah, so I've brought a couple of carloads over now. I've used my mum's old Lexus just to make sure, because I thought the ute, coming over from South Australia with all the stuff.
Well, there's a bag of green out the back.
Yeah. I thought, that's not going to work. So mum's got this old 20-year-old Lexus, but it's covered. I put seats down, so put old coffins in and, just some pictures and stuff like that. Brought it over. So, Abacus Auctions in Mount Waverley.
Yep.
So they've been brilliant. They've been great to deal with and, did a bit of research, and they've obviously very experienced in that space, not just sports memorabilia, but, they do a lot of coins, stamps and all sorts. So got on board, so brought some stuff over. So hopefully other people can enjoy some of the memorabilia that, to be fair, a lot of it's been sitting in storage.
Yep.
And, when you accumulate so much over a period of time, where do you put it all?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'd rather it be, out there. I remember Greg Chappell years ago when he was coach of South Australia. He ended up moving on some of his sports memorabilia from his playing days, and I asked him why. Because at the time I was a player and thinking, I'm keeping absolutely everything that I've ever achieved from under 10s, right? So I want to keep everything. And he just said, well, look, Diz, it's downstairs in the basement, sitting in coffins. I don't go down there and open it up and sit there and look at my jumpers and like every other day. It's just there. I'd rather someone else have it. They can put it up on their wall and talk about it. It's a piece. These things should be out there. Whether it's in private homes or museums or whatever. People love this stuff, and it's better than just sitting downstairs in a basement.
Absolutely, mate.
And after I finished playing and, down the track, you think, you know what, that actually makes a bit of sense, because, our house we've got trophies and that, but that's from all our kids' achievements and stuff. And, so I'll keep some, things. I've kept a lot of stuff that means a lot to me. I'm lucky to have a few baggy greens and, a couple of, things sentimental things that mean a lot. But some of the other stuff, I think, it's, I don't have a problem if someone else, can enjoy it. So,
has there been, like, you would have gone through the experience at looking back at some of this stuff and opening boxes? Has there been stuff that's made you chuckle or think, oh, yeah, I remember that? Or like, what's been the things that have sort of stuck personally in your mind?
I think you just remember, like, there's stuff you forget you actually own. You know, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there listening who probably experience that. You go into your garage and open a box or open a bag. And, so just little things like a stump that I've kept from, 100th wicket one days, or, ball I got my 200th test wicket with, these sort of things. And, they're
That's
cool.
very cool.
Yeah. So, and like a shirt signed by, a couple of lads, shirt that I wore, in a certain game. And you just then reflect back and you remember bits of part of that game. My memory of cricket games is actually pretty poor.
Well, that's going to make this tough.
It's going to make it a bit tough. No, but you know what I mean? Like, there's I have people come up to me, I remember when you got this 3-for in this one day against Pakistan. I go, so I'd have to go back and look, and then you do remember things from rewatching it. But
have you got anything from the 200 in Bangladesh? Do you have any item? Do you have a glove or a bat? Where's the bat?
I've got the bat.
You've got the bat.
I've got shirt I wore. I wore 2 shirts. One's actually going in this auction.
Right.
I've got my gloves that I wore, my pads.
That's so good.
Yeah, but they're not going in the auction. That's it's a tough one. The cricket bat. It was my first 100 in any form of cricket. That, and you just think, but it's not displayed anywhere. It's just sitting.
But there's a shirt from it.
Yeah, I got the shirt from it. Yeah.
I think the shirt from your 200. I think I should buy it, and you know who I will send it to as a gift, because this man gave me something. But there's a man that numerous times brought up. He's like, Howie, I'd get to 100 and I'd get bored, and then he's like,
I know exactly who you're talking about.
Oh, well, but let me finish the story, then you tell me. And I rarely swear on this show, but he's like, I'd lose concentration, but I never made a 200, and fucking Dizzy did. Who am I talking about?
Junior.
Yes. I think I buy that shirt and send it up there to him, because you talk about the value of memorabilia. I had a conversation with him one day about how my favourite bit of sporting apparel anywhere in the world is the full-length cable knit Australian Test jumper. Yep. To me, that is Test cricket. Seeing you guys in England in an Ashes in a cold day wearing that. And, Junior's pretty low-key bloke. And the next test, at the SCG test, a couple of years ago, he blew me away, and we do our lunch show, and he had a bag, and I didn't think much of it, and he pulled it out on air, and he said, here you go, mate, this is for you.
Wow,
and
that's pretty cool.
Diz, one, because you know what Junior's like.
Yeah, absolutely.
The joy that it gave me, and occasionally, at fancy dress, I put it on. We had a...
No. You wear it watching TV.
Well, I do. The first night he gave it to me, I put it on in bed and sent a snap to the entire Fox WhatsApp group to say I've got Junior's jumper on. But we had a retro at Barwon Heads a couple of years ago, wear your retro cricket club gear. Yeah. And I rolled up, and it's like 36 degrees. They're howling northerly, and I thought, no, stuff this. I rolled up with a full cable net on. Oh, mate, I was sweating it up. But it's like the fact you can give this joy to people, but it does annoy June that you got the 2.
Well, it's part of my Sportsman's Night story.
Which we will get to.
The 201, so I can unpack a bit of that later.
Save that for later on. Hey, mate, you're also in, the other thing we were just talking, you're in the apparel business as well, which is... Cricket clubs, especially, local in Melbourne here or country where I am, it just used to be the old pair of whites and away you go now. But we've got tops for this. We've got training tops. We've got coloured tops for the one days. You're in this caper as well too, yeah?
Yeah, so Gillespie Sports. So we're based in Adelaide. We've also got the cricket and football shop in Darwin.
Right.
And, we do cricket clothing. We've got like cricket tours, like we're going with our mate Loz, going to Carl Hooper. We're doing a hosted sport cricket tour, supporters tour to the West Indies.
You go with Carl Hooper as well.
Big Hoopsy's coming.
Hey, Diz, whenever I see you, we normally spend time chatting with each other in airports, it seems to be, waiting for bags, etc. But you've come in here beautifully presented. You're obviously still really looking after yourself. You're vegan, though, yeah?
I am, yep.
How much of a... I think it's in a privileged position that I am, you get to travel around the world often for work and see different approaches and different views, different religions, different cultures, different approaches to all sorts of things. What made you decide to be vegan, and how difficult is it, or is it not difficult? Like, how much planning goes into it? So, like, especially when you're out and about. Like, if I'll finish this before I go to the footy, I'll go and get something from a local cafe. I can choose from 35 things on the menu. You probably can't.
No, probably not. Most of the time, no. But in answer to your first part of the question, was sitting down one night, my wife and I were in Leeds in England when I was coaching Yorkshire.
So this is what, 10 years ago?
Yeah, 10, 11 years ago.
Okay.
And we just put on a documentary called Earthlings.
Right.
And it was literally as simple as that. I watched it. I was horrified. And it was just how non-human animals are treated.
Yeah.
And I literally went vegan overnight. Like it
Did
was,
you really?
Yeah. So a lot of people sort of transition, and
You just went bang.
I just went bang. I said I can't do it anymore. And and look, I'm the biggest carnivore going around. I grew up eating 3 veg, and I just something in me just twigged.
Yeah, my word.
Yeah.
Cricket, when's it first enter your life? Where'd you grow up and when's it enter your life? Tell me about your family life.
So I was born in Darlinghurst in Sydney and grew up in the southwestern suburbs of Sydney. So we lived there till I was 10. So I started cricket at 6 or 7 years of age.
Who with?
I was with the Illawong Cricket Club. And so then it became Illawong Menai District Cricket Club.
Okay.
So I was there for a few years till I was 10, and then Dad got a job. Dad was working for State Bank New South Wales, and then he got a job opportunity with State Bank South Australia. So we all jumped into the Commodore and drove across in early '86. So January '86. So then I started year 6 in South Australia. And,
So in the joint you moved into, tell me about the backyard or front yard cricket setup. Who were you playing with? I presume you played in the backyard?
Yeah, so the house we had at Flagstaff Hill in South Australia, in Adelaide, it was relatively narrow block. The side of the house was only it was literally the width of a car space, so you could fit a car in the fence. So I would literally throw the ball against the wall and bat for hours and hours and hours. And I would bowl down the driveway.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd bowl down the driveway. My younger brother, Rob, not really into cricket. So he would dabble, but I could always tell he was never interested. And that's cool. Dad was always great. Like when he could, he would take me to the nets. He'd face me, or he would bowl to me. He didn't have a huge cricket background either. In fact, we worked out there was probably no one in all our extended family that ever really got into cricket.
So what grabbed
seriously.
you about the game?
I just watched it on TV. I saw it. I saw the Aussies playing, and in the early '80s.
Who was your hero?
DK was obviously.
DK.
Oh, absolutely.
We're both. As you said it, we both wiped our finger across our forehead as if we were getting rid of the sweat.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I caught up with Damien Fleming last night.
Right.
And walked into this restaurant where we saw it, and he looked at me. I looked at him, and all he did, he walked to me, and he went like that, and then I went like that. And we shook hands.
I like DK. I love that. I love that.
But yeah, that's how I fell in love with the game, just watching the Aussies play. And then
as a bowler or as a batter through the juniors?
I did a lot of batting in juniors, but bowling was always the thing I loved. And then even when, as a teenager, I had some growing pains, and so I had some injuries, through growth spurts and stuff. I was limited to just batting. And I really enjoyed that, don't get me wrong, but it was the bowling that always grabbed me. And then once I had my growth spurts, and then I sort of got a bit stronger and a bit quicker, then the bowling probably took precedent. And but that was always what I wanted. I always wanted to be a bowler. I love my batting, don't get me wrong, and I put a lot of time and effort into it, because I always felt I had a job to do to support whoever I was batting with, because normally as a lower order player, you're batting with an established batter. So I always felt it was my responsibility to stay there with them. So I always practiced as hard as I could. I didn't have many shots, but I practiced hard. And but yeah, bowling was always the thing.
Tell me about a dominant junior performance, like when you made big runs or took big wickets as a kid.
As a kid, I remember I was 16 or 17. I was playing D grade for Adelaide Cricket Club.
D grade.
Yeah, and I bowled 34 overs straight, and I got 8 for 38.
That's a big day.
It's a big day.
Obviously, no over restrictions in the day.
I've still got my mate who was wicket keeping that day, Paul Amato. His name is Tommy. We call him Tommy Amato, and he still talks about the leg side stumping he got off me because he was up to the stumps because I was bowling medium pace, but he said, I've taken a stumping off Jason Gillespie.
So Diz, you're playing as a 16 or 17, right? 16. You're playing D grade. At what point did something change? Because you obviously didn't continue along your career playing D grade. Was it growth? Was it skill? Was it coach? Was it practice? Where all of a sudden you obviously started elevating?
There was I call it my light bulb moment, Howie. And it was at Adelaide Cricket Club practice at Bailey Reserve in Adelaide, southern suburbs of Adelaide. And, when you turn up to cricket, everyone puts their bags down, get your boots on, thing. Everyone goes for the old school lap. And then everyone congregates around the sight screen and has a stretch. And
one hamstring stretch and maybe a calf raise.
Yeah. Maybe a little leg swing.
I'm ready to go, boys.
Right, ready to go. And so we're all just sitting around. There's a mixture of A graders, B graders. And I was 16, 17. And the conversations were just, everyone's talking about, what their plans for the future are. And guys are talking about work and family and, I don't know how much longer I play cricket. And, and one of the boys just, and what about you, Jason? What are your plans? And he said, well, I'm going to play for South Australia when I'm 19 and I'm going to play for Australia when I'm 21.
Wow.
And when I say it's my light bulb moment, it's because everyone just looked at me and burst out laughing.
Boys weren't right behind you then.
Not quite, right? They burst out laughing. And that hit me hard. And why I say it's my light bulb moment is because I thought I was doing all I could to be the best I could be. Okay. And I realised, I was coming in, I was bowling, and I kind of reflected. I go, I was just going through the motions. I was just doing the bare minimum, right? But I thought I was actually doing what I needed to do to be a fast bowler. But I clearly wasn't because no one could see what I could see or feel in here, right? Or up here. I knew I just firmly believed, I had that innate belief that I could do it, but no one else could see that. So I knew I had to change. I had to do something different. So I remember that session distinctly. I went in, I measured this big long run up out, and I actually just ran in as fast as I could and bowled as fast as I could. Sprayed him around a bit, but I surprised myself at how quick I bowled. And I think I raised a few eyebrows that night. And in the end, like towards the end of the season, they put me up into the C grade.
So you're still in D grade at this stage?
I was in D grade. So then I sort of played C grade, D grade. And then it was the second last game of the season, and I'm playing C grade. And I get like 1 for 50 off 8 overs. But I'm bowling reasonably quick. And C grade are going to qualify for the finals. So the last game of the season, the A grade were out of finals contention. And I got picked in the A grade, straight from C grade.
You just skip the Bs?
Skip the Bs. So I played an A grade game before I played a B grade game. And there were a few eyebrows raised at the club. And my late father, my dad was the E grade captain, like 5th grade. He was basically the manager.
What was your dad's name?
Neil. Yeah, so he batted 11, didn't bowl. It was there to help out, right? But he'd sit in on the selection committee, and he was dead against the idea. Said, Jason's not ready, all this sort of stuff. And so anyway, but they picked me. The A-grade captain wanted me in the team and picked me. And apparently, and I obviously wasn't there, but I opened the bowling, so I bowled the second over. And after my first over, I had 1 for none. I nicked off the opener. And then apparently my dad turned to someone and said, I'm not getting involved in Jason's career ever again. I'm keeping my mouth shut.
Come on, Neil.
And then it just went from there. I went back for finals for C grade, and we won the C grade trophy and C grade title, and which was great for Adelaide. And And then, yeah, I think, but yeah, just that moment was a real moment for me in my life, really, because it was just that perception that I was giving off wasn't what I felt inside. So I knew I had to change, and I had to change that. So I remember after that training session, I went home, got my running shoes out, went for a run. I'm doing push-ups in the living room, doing sit-ups, and then it just
So you
went.
got fair dinkum.
I got fair dinkum, basically. Yeah, and it just, I suppose, it just started to go from there.
Did you go to the cricket academy?
I did. So I got picked in the South Australian under-19s. I didn't make the Australian under-19 trip that went to India in '94. There were some pretty good players in that team. So Brett Lee, Mike Hussey, Andrew Simons, Matty Nicholson, these sort of guys. So it was a pretty good team. I didn't actually make that team, but I got a phone call. The team had just gone over there, and a couple of guys got injured, and I just got the call up to join the Australian under-19 team, and I was absolutely gobsmacked. I thought, "There's no, this must be a joke."
Where were they?
They were in India,
Right.
so I turned up in India.
First time.
Yep. Didn't know any of the guys that there was one lad who I played grade cricket with, Brad Birrell, off spinner. He'd made the Australian side, so he was there. But yeah, I didn't know any of these. I obviously played the carnival against some of these guys, but didn't know any of them. And yeah, so that was a bit of a whirlwind. And I ended up playing a couple of the youth tests and did okay. I was the third seamer, and yeah, did a job. I wasn't overly quick compared to those other guys. But that I suppose got me playing a bit of second level stuff, and then got offered an opportunity at the academy. So because I want to talk to you a lot about coaching, your experiences there, I'll just skip ahead a bit. How do you find out you're going to play your first Test match for Australia? At the SCG? It was at the SCG. So I was 12th man in Brisbane the Test before, and then it was literally just, oh, you're in. Like I don't actually remember it was just a bit of the team's been named. Oh, you're in. And because these were the days before getting presented a baggy green.
So you got no presentation of that?
No. We just you just get a box with your kit in the in your hotel room. And,
do you remember putting it on? Did you put it in front of the mirror? Or?
Oh yeah.
Did you?
Mate, I put it on. Look at the mirror. I'm sitting watching TV. Remember when Seinfeld got his new jacket?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And he's wearing it, and he's sitting in his pajamas, and he's on the couch watching TV in his jacket. He's just, that was me, except I had the baggy green, and I'm just sort of...
So who's captain of this team?
Mark Taylor.
So what's your memories of your first Test match?
Yeah.
I know who your first wicket was.
Yeah, it was Curtly Ambrose.
Yeah,
around the wicket. I was getting some reverse swing.
Right.
The ball was getting a bit older, and so I got some reverse swing. And to knock over Curtly Ambrose was pretty special because a bit of a hero. Like obviously, growing up watching him bowl and terrorise teams all over the world, and he terrorised Australia at times. But to be able to knock him over, that was pretty cool. And they got Kenny Benjamin with a big slower ball, finished the innings. They were two tail enders, but I'll tell you what, I did not care.
So when you walk into there,
yeah,
are you like, yeah, I'm good here, or are you looking around at some of the names in that team thinking, holy heck?
I think if I go back to when '96 World Cup, I replaced Craig McDermott. Craig McDermott got injured partway through, and I'd had a really good summer for South Australia. But I'd only played a couple of 50-over cricket games, but I'd had a really good summer, and a replacement for the World Cup, they just took me over. They got me over. I hadn't met any of the players. I didn't know anyone. Like I'd never played against them or anything because the Aussie team had all played all the previous summer. I was playing for South Australia, and so I went, and I remember going into, getting met by Bobby Simpson and Ian McDonald, a media manager, and then going to my room and unpacking, get a knock on the door. Open the door, it's Mark Taylor.
Look on your face.
I'm going, yeah, g'day, Dizzy, I'm Tubby, right? And I'm going, I'm on nickname basis with the Australian cricket captain.
That's so good.
How cool is that? And so then the boys are all filtering in, like going past, and you're a new lad, yeah, oh yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm June. Yeah. I'm Warnie. Yeah. It's Tugger. What? That's Steve Waugh. Like it was just a bit surreal. But very quickly, obviously guys took me under their wing. Flemmo was brilliant. He took me under his wing a little bit. And Junior, in those early days, I went on a couple of tours, subcontinent, before my test debut. Junior was my roommate.
Here we go.
Yeah, so he was great.
Of course he was.
He looked after me. He was very good. But Junior, Flemmo were the two guys that I roomed with a bit. This was the days before the own rooms, and but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And look, what you find is when in that environment, being a young kid, the boys take you under their wing. You realise you're on tour, you're in it together, and lads were so welcoming, and that was a big takeaway for me. Like so early, as I asked, like Mum and Dad would ask, "Oh, what's it like? Like, being around all these guys?" I said, "It actually feels normal, feels right." Like and that's probably a real testament to everyone involved with that, with the Australian side at the time, that how welcomed I was made to feel, and I know that was something I took away once I started to play regularly, and that if someone new came into the environment, I'd always make sure that go out of my way to say hello and have a chat and make them feel part of it, because it's really important, because you're in it together.
I'm sure it wasn't publicised at the time, but you are listed now, almost retrospectively, as the first Australian male cricketer of Indigenous descent to play Test cricket.
Yep.
I don't know how much you were aware of your family history.
Oh, we were well aware.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
where does it go back to?
Yeah, my great grandfather. On my father's side. So my mother's side, we've got Greek heritage.
Okay.
So Greek and Aboriginal. So but yeah, my dad's side, so great grandfather, and so we've always known, it's from a very young age, that we were of Indigenous descent, and obviously very proud of it, and that.
So what does it mean to you? Like, obviously now Scotty Boland, who won the Johnny Muller medal at the Boxing Day. So what does it mean to you when, be on your Wikipedia page, the first Indigenous male to play Test cricket for his country?
Yeah, there's a tinge of disappointment about it, if I'm honest, that I was the first one.
Okay.
And it took all that
time,
if that makes sense. Pride, without a doubt, is the thing, but it just says to me that, can we do more to engage and get Indigenous kids playing cricket, because ideally we'd love to see more representation in our national side. So, but look, I think what T20 has done and the shorter forms have done is we're seeing a lot more opportunity, aren't we? Obviously with Big Bash, the beauty of Big Bash is there's an extra 2 teams from the state system.
Yes.
So that's more opportunity for all players, which includes Indigenous people. So. So that's great. So we're seeing more players, both male and female, of Indigenous heritage playing, which I think is great, and hopefully Cricket Australia can continue can do more to encourage Indigenous kids to play the game.
There's that expression, you can't do what you can't see. I think that was why it was so important with Scotty Boland
absolutely
in modern media, where there's so much more reporting, there's so much more social media, people can understand this type of thing. I want to ask you about a few incidents in your Test career, which you will have talked about prior, but a lot of them come down to batting, which is quite strange. But 1997, you're at the Ashes in Leeds. Australia win the series 3-2, but you take 7 for 37. I don't know if figures always stack up as the best you bowl, but I was having a look back at the highlights this morning. That to me was you at peak, like full of a length, moving the ball both ways, in the air and off the seam. I saw Graham Thorpe trying to pull a ball that was completely deceived him and crunched into the stumps. You just looked quick, fit, and absolutely on top of your game.
Yeah, Ian Healy always said that was the quickest spell he'd kept to.
Really?
Which it's a nice feather in your cap, isn't
word
it?
it is.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. Going pure line and length and stuff, it wasn't my best, but pace creates indecision. And
That's what happened with Thorpe. That's exactly what happened with Thorpe.
So look, I was really proud of that achievement. It was an interesting test match because England had prepared a surface, or the curator prepared a surface that they weren't happy with because they thought it was too dry. It was going to assist Shane Warne too much. So they went and moved the pitch over a couple to try and negate Warney. What it did in turn, it made us play on a surface that assisted the seamers a bit more. So it was a green tinge wicket, and I was lucky enough to pick up 7 for, Paul Rifle. I think got 5 for in the second innings, but I was grateful to get man of the match, which was great. But Matty Elliott got 199 in that game, in an innings. And one of the best knocks. He got bowled by Goffey on 199, which, unfortunately he didn't get to 200.
Little early dig at poor old Victorian Matty
I was
Elliott
catching
there.
up with Matty. I caught up with him and Flem last night.
Right.
So, just a bit of a laugh. See, I try to fit the 200 anywhere I can.
I like it, Diz.
But yeah, I was very grateful to get the man of the match, but I always felt to this day that Matty probably deserved that. On that surface, in those conditions, it was a superb knock. And it helped us because we were in a bit of spot of bother. We were 4 down. Him and Ricky Ponting, Punter got 120 odd, I think, and we were 4 down for 40 or something, 4 down for 30 odd, and they went and put on this unbelievable partnership. So that's what I thought. But obviously, the people who decide who gets man of the match thought the 7 deserved it. So I was pretty happy with that. But
you're actually off to Sri Lanka this week to check out your business. You've had you had some. Well, you've had some interesting experience. Obviously, the one that is yourself and Steve Waugh. Have we got that vision, Tommy? We might actually. Do you mind looking back at the vision? Cause it's not nice vision. We'll whack these headsets
it's far
on.
from nice.
Yeah, it's so. This is the first test versus Sri Lanka in 1999.
Colin Miller.
So Funky
Miller.
looks like he's bowling. Is he bowling spin or pace?
He's bowling spin. Okay. I think he's bowling to Mahela Joe Wardener.
Okay.
The great Sri Lankan batter.
Colin Miller again, bowling his off spinners. Well, that's gone in the air. This is going to be safe, is it? No, this might be out. Oh, there's a collision. Oh, a dreadful collision down there. Dreadful collision. My goodness. Well, 2 of them charging down towards each other. Is that who's that? Is that Steve Waugh? I think he's holding his nose. And there was no real call. And look at, is it Gillespie down there with him, Steve
I think
Waugh?
that's enough, Tommy.
Yeah, that's enough, Tom.
I haven't seen that for a long time. Obviously, it's taken you right back to that moment there. Steve Waugh famously went on and said when he was in the hospital bed, he reflected on, right, if I don't captain my country again, am I happy with the way I've gone about it? And he obviously did and went on to a lot of success. But what's your memories of that incident, which was hard to watch?
I was in a lot of pain, but it was a bit surreal. I felt something in my leg. I didn't know what. But then when I tried to put just the tiniest bit of weight on it, it was the most sharp pain I've ever experienced.
Was it?
And I knew I've done something serious here. So I'd never broken a bone in my body before, so I didn't really know. But it was pretty obvious. I got carried off. But everyone went to Steve because he had blood pouring out of his nose and stuff, and rightly so.
So his head hit your leg, ostensibly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
okay.
It's hard to.
Well, the injuries would say that.
So I broke my tibia. I actually broke my right wrist as well. It was non-displaced fracture. But they said there was nothing wrong. But I had this big bruise all the way up to my elbow, like this dark bruise. I thought I literally couldn't pick up a cup. And they found out there was a non-displaced fracture in there. So I just had to wear a little brace.
So would you end up in an ambulance together or separately? What happened?
We ended up in an ambulance. We got airlifted to Colombo, but we had an ambulance took us from the ground to the Sanath Jayasuriya was playing in the game. He had a friend in the army and got us airlifted by the army to Colombo Hospital, which was brilliant. But the ambulance. So do you remember the old escort panel van?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the ambulance at the time in 1999 in Sri Lanka. And so they've opened the doors, pushed us in. And Errol Alcott tells a story. He was a physio at the time. This eager ambulance driver just went to slam the door shut, back door shut. Errol's just grabbed the door at the last minute. My broken leg was hanging out of the door. And if Errol hadn't grabbed it, it could have probably snapped my leg off.
Oh, my goodness.
So it was, so we got airlifted to Colombo, we got treated. My leg was repaired. I got put in a big cast. They did an unbelievable job. When I went back to Adelaide and I got the cast taken off and I got a titanium rod, 40-centimetre rod put through my patella tendon, through my tibia, because I didn't want to be in a cast and I wanted to be able to, I was able to get in the pool once the wound healed and be able to start training my leg to get back. And I played, a few months later, 6 months later, I played with the titanium rod in my leg.
Still in there?
Last 2 Shield games of the season, yeah. But yeah, it was the doctors in Sri Lanka were unbelievable.
Were you in the hospital with Stephen?
We were in beds beside each other.
In the hospital in
the
Colombo?
hospital, chatting away. And there was a couple of funny incidents. So one was, I think we'd been given so many pain relieving drugs that we both started almost hallucinating and talking about, we can go back and finish the game. Like I could stand there with, my leg out here. I could put a pad on my front leg. Like that's how much pain relief we were on. But we laughed about that later. But there was a funny incident. A young, attractive Sri Lankan nurse has walked into the room and she's carrying a little bowl of warm soapy water. And she said, "Mr. Gillespie."
Gillespie.
Yeah, because a lot of people in Asia struggle with my surname.
Yep.
And I've always been Mr. Gillespie, whether it's been in India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. It's always been that because I think English is not their first language, they find it, the sounds difficult.
Absolutely.
So no drama. So I always have a laugh about it. But she said, "Mr. Gillespie, it's time for your sponge bath." And I'm looking at Stephen. He's looking at me, thinking, "You lucky bastard." And I got my tongue in the corner of my mouth going, "How good's this?" And then she's, "Excuse me, we'll be back in a sec," all this sort of stuff. So I'm thinking, how good's this? And then I've turned, a couple of minutes later, I've just turned to get something off the bedside table and I hear Stephen laughing. Turn around and in walks this short little male nurse with a big tash, little portly fellow. And he goes, "Mr. Gillespie, it's time for your sponge bath." And I will be administering it. So we had a little bit of a laugh with that. So Stephen's crying by this stage, and all I'm thinking is, how is Jason? Don't get excited.
It's when you, especially footy now, Diz. Now I know you follow the footy. When you commentate a game of footy, I love all the celebrations. Like the team that I've followed for ever and a day, the Hawks, especially last year, they started bringing all these celebrations. And it happens in cricket a bit, but more in footy, especially the young guys. They watch so much American sport and they do these celebrations that are often linked to the NBA or the NFL, which I don't watch much American sport. And when you're commentating at the moment, you're trying to think to yourself, well, what does that mean? What? And straight away on social media, you'll get 60 24-year-olds that are obsessed with the NBA telling you, you can't, it's the silencer from whoever or whatever.
Yeah.
So when you famously scored your first Test 50, I was watching it this morning. Let's listen to the commentary first because the great Bill, Richie and Tony, they weren't across your celebration like I'm not with the young kids today.
Oh, he's got it. Inside edge, was it? Yes, he's got 50. Well played.
So at this stage, your little inside edge, you've got to the fence, you've put your bat between the legs and ridden it like a horse. What was the inspiration for that?
Well, that was just a silly little thing. Like I called it the Happy Gilmore.
Yes.
Yeah. So I love watching Happy Gilmore and...
So the Channel 9 boys of the day were not across.
No, they weren't across
This
it.
is what I'm talking about.
They weren't across it. And it was very simple. My club mates at Adelaide, we were chatting after a game one day and, I said, be cool if I got a 50 in a test match one day. I'd have to celebrate it somehow. And the subject got to, you should do that. Or, it got to ride a horse. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And they go, no, you won't. And I said, and one of the lads had piped up, if you do, there's a carton of beer in it for you, right? Done. So all the boys, like that night, overnight, Glenn had got his 50 and I was getting close to 50 overnight. And so all the boys knew. I said, if I do it, I'm going to ride my back like Happy Gilmore. And all the boys were like, well, did he really do that? I think the ones that knew me go, yeah, he will. So I ended up doing it. There was another celebration I used to do. We went through a phase with Brett Lee and I when we bowled and got wickets. We did this stupid little dance. I don't know if you ever saw Brett do it.
Yes.
Do you know what the inspiration of that was?
No.
Do you remember Jerry Maguire?
Yes.
The movie?
Yes.
You know Rod Tidwell?
Yes, Show Me the Money.
John, yeah, he'd get a touchdown.
Oh, and he did the foot-to-foot dance.
That was what that was.
Right. I reckon he pulled it off slightly better than you blokes may have pulled it off.
100%. Brett ended up just looking at the ground and doing like this. I was trying to be a bit more elaborate and look around. But yeah, Bingo just sort of just looking at his feet, you know.
I love it. The other thing, obviously, you in full flow was always magnificent once you went with the long hair. And I was thinking about this today, that we don't see enough long hair in cricket. And I was thinking back, I remember Beefy used to have the big perm, sort of Graham Dilly had quite longish hair. But I'm sure people will message in, but we don't see enough long hair in Test cricket. But that was you in full flow when you had that mullet.
Yeah, and I suppose the evolution of that was, I remember chatting to Adam Gilchrist. We were on tour somewhere, and we were bemoaning the fact there were no mullets left in cricket. And so I might have been a few beers in. I said, stuff it. I'm going to grow one.
I'm going with it.
And Gilly's looking at me and go, no, you won't, Dizzy. So when someone tells me I can't do something, you know, you have to do it, eh? So I ended up, that's how it started. Simple. So blame Gilly.
I heard the commentators talking about it again. It was Bill and Richie and Tony. You had the baggy green on. They weren't necessarily identifying with what you were doing.
No,
fair to say.
Not quite.
Fair to say. The 200 Diz that we spoke about at the start, I should have gone and looked back at the scoreboard. Why were you in as a night watchman? What had occurred for you to walk out?
So we bowled out Bangladesh for about 190
In Bangladesh?
In Bangladesh. So we're in Chittagong. I think it's called Chattagram now.
Yeah, I haven't been to Bangladesh.
Yeah, so we were there. It was the second test of the series. So I'd got called up to this series because obviously I'd had a bad Ashes 05 and quite rightly got left out. I missed the whole next summer, 05-06. The Aussie team had gone to South Africa after the big summer, and then they were basically on their way back home. They had a couple of tests and some one-days in Bangladesh. I got the call up. You know, I think Ricky was keen to have some experience there, you know, because Glenn was unavailable. His then wife, Jane, was unwell. So he took that tour off. A couple other bowlers were injured. So I was given an opportunity and played the first test. We won that. And then that second test. So we bowled out Bangladesh and then... Do you want mayonnaise?
Yes.
Okay.
Lots of mayonnaise,
Okay,
Diz.
I can add some mayonnaise. So I get a tap on the shoulder. I'm just taking my kit off and shoes off. So I've done my job, 3 for 11 off 5 overs.
Handy.
And I get a tap on the shoulder and I look up and it's the number 1 test batter in the world and our captain, Ricky Ponting. And he says, Diz, and I say, Rick. He said, Diz, I can't do it. I said, what do you mean? What's the matter? He said, mate, if we lose a wicket, I can't go out there. You've seen the conditions out there. It's diabolical.
I like this mayonnaise.
You've seen it, Diz, out there. It's not only seaming and swinging, but it's turning square on day one. I can't do it, so you need to do my job. I said, Rick, you're the number 1 test batter in the world. You average 50 in test cricket. I've done my job.
3 for 11.
3 for 11 off 5. Put your pads on. All right? No sooner I put my pads on than wicket falls. Matty Hayden succumbed to the
treacherous conditions.
To the treacherous conditions out there. So I had to go out there and bat.
So
and
how long is there to go in the day's play?
It wasn't 15, 20 minutes or so. So I negotiate the challenging conditions, Howie.
What are you on? What are you on at the end of the day's play?
I can't remember.
Not many, a few.
But I was just...
Solid.
it was barn door, mate. No one's getting past that.
Ponting couldn't do it, but
Ponting couldn't do it.
Gillespie could.
Gillespie could. And then, so the next day, obviously Phil Jakes is out there batting, obviously early in his Test career. So, as a senior player out there, to nurse him through.
Of course you did.
And negotiate. He was shitting bricks. He was
of course
nervous as hell. It was hard work out there. And then he succumbed and outstrode Rick. Rick was nervous, obviously.
Well, he only had 8,000 Test runs behind him at this stage.
Only 8,000. So, I had to help him through.
Of course you did.
Yeah, it's just part of what you do as a good teammate.
Team man.
So I nursed him through. Said, this guy's turning it square. It's, kicking out of the rough. And the seamers, they're swinging it and seaming it. So you just have to have your wits about you, Rick. So I was on about 20-odd when he came in. He reached his 50. I'd moved to 22.
So he dealt with it on your advice pretty well.
Yeah. But, while he was scoring the runs, I was the glue that was holding this partnership together.
Cummins to Maxwell in the World Cup against Afghanistan.
Exactly right, mate. And so then we're batting and I'm facing left-arm spin of Mohammed Rafiq, who comfortably best left-arm spinner the history that has ever seen.
So the best of all time.
Best ever, mate. He was unbelievable.
How many Test wickets did he take?
Don't know. It doesn't matter.
Right. we might add a note there because I haven't seen him in the top 10 of all time.
Okay.
But anyway.
Okay. But you bear in mind the treacherous conditions that we were facing. So anyway, I've gone and played probably one of the more masterful forward defences. And it squirted out to the offside. And I'm admiring my forward defence. I look up. Ricky's halfway down the wicket calling yes.
Oh, no.
So I did what any, number 9 who's been promoted to number 3 would do in a Test match with his foot behind the line. I just said no.
Did you run him out?
So Rick just had to turn, and he's got the turning circle of QE2, so he's a bit slow, and he's heading back. Little did I know that this fielder here was left-handed, and it literally bobbled up right into his left hand. He's thrown the ball, and he's hit the stumps. Ricky's out by a couple of metres.
You ran Ricky Ponting out.
I might have.
Was he happy with that? He just walked off, didn't say anything?
Not exactly. I heard a couple of choice swear words.
Right.
I heard dizzy a number of times.
Right.
And I heard some banging as he was going up. And I heard an almighty ruckus going on. And that was a moment, Howie, that I knew I couldn't go back into that dressing room.
So this mammoth inning was built on the fact you weren't going to face the little Tasmanian.
I was too scared of Rick.
So that and it's a fantastic story. And I'm glad you told it that way.
Yeah.
But what unfurls is, you talked about at the start that you worked hard on your batting because you wanted to be there to support your teammates. What's your memory of bringing up 100?
Well, I remember going from 90 to 100. I'd never been in that position in my life because my highest score was actually 90 playing 5th grade for Adelaide.
So not even as a kid you haven't made 100?
No, never made 100.
This is so good, dear.
So I just had to, so I thought about it. So, what's my process been? Just, I have my little bat taps and I just, play straight. I keep my pad out of the way, trust myself to hit the ball.
Run the occasional grade out every now and then.
Run the occasional grade out. I knew if it turned off the straight, which it actually wasn't, all jokes aside, wasn't doing much. If I just made sure I kept my pad out of the way and backed myself to hit the ball, I could do that. If it spun, it'd probably spin past my bat and past the stumps, so I'd be okay. And then if it was off the stumps, I'd look to try and score. So that was basically my game plan. And I just thought, well, I've been doing it for 90 runs. I might as well just do it for another 10. So that's literally how my mindset was. And, I had my shots were pretty much driving through the offside if they overpitched. If they got too straight, I'd just sort of tuck away. And then if it was short and wide, I'd just try and cut it. Because it faced a lot of spin. And that was basically how I did it. And, brought up the 100 and raised the bat. I wasn't quite sure what to do. Do you take your helmet off? Or I don't know. And so it just went from there. And then literally
how are the boys receiving you? Because you're coming in and out of breaks. There's lunch, there's tea, there's drinks. That.
There's a bit of disbelief. Yeah. That's fair to say. That's fair to say. But I was in a big partnership with Mike Hussey.
Yeah, the great man.
The great Mike Hussey. We put on 320, which was, it's still
And what was he like to bat with in that situation? He's
he
a
was
beautiful
unbelievable.
man.
He was unbelievable. And one quick story. I was in about the 160s.
Oh,
I still.
he says, I'm in the 160s.
I was about to say that. I'd still pinch myself saying that, right? But I was in about 160s, and I've played this big windy whoosh shot, very uncharacteristic, and it's just missed my leg stump by a bee's dick. And Huss just starts coming down the pitch, do a bit of gardening, and he's sort of basically motioning me to come there. I'm thinking, what's going on here? I'm the senior partner here. So I get to the middle. And Huss goes, Diz, what the hell was that? I said, oh, mate, sorry. Just said, Diz, and he's looking at me, and he's pointing his finger. You will never, ever be in this position again to score a test match double, right?
It's a fair point.
It's a great point.
It's a good point.
At the time, my ego was, I'm just hang on, mate, I could do this again, right?
Sure
I didn't say that to Huss. I'm just in my mind going, I could do this again. Fuck off, Huss. But then Huss, no worries. Yeah, no, you're right. So I turn around and still going, fuck, Huss, bloody hell, right. But by the time I walked from the middle of the pitch back to my crease, I knew he was 100% right. And I absolutely pulled my head in and then just kept going. And so I finished the Sports Was Right story because Huss succumbed to the great bowling and got out for 180. So I had to keep going. And I think the word from the dressing room was, Diz, if you get the 200, we'll pull the pin. So young Michael Clark, pup, came out and he's batting and he got to 20 or something and 20 not out. And we're just batting together. He's, again, I have to take on the senior role. He's pup, the little Nemo, the little fish. So... I turn Mohammed Rafiq down the leg side, go from 197 to 200, raise the bat. I'm
Harsh is in commentary.
Harsh is in commentary, doing
He's
brilliant.
laughing, in fact. He's laughing.
Yeah, I don't know why. It was always on the cards, Howie.
Correct.
So anyway, we're going off. And so how I tell the Sports Was Right story with a bit of mayo, I just say, look, I saw this as a leadership and learning opportunity for young Michael Clark. And as we're walking off, he taps me on the back, said, Diz, well batted. And I just turned to Michael Clark. I say, son, that's how you score test match doubles.
I love it.
I can't categorically say if that actually happened.
It doesn't matter.
But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But a lot of fun.
Did you have a moment, I'm sure, after the test or during the test to reflect that all humour aside, it goes down as one of those much talked about moments in the history of Australian cricket. It's something phenomenal you did. It's not like we're not seeing Ricky Ponting come out to bowl and take 9 for. It's the equivalent. In fact, it's probably more than that. Yeah. It's an amazing feat you achieved.
Yeah, it was a funny one because it would have been interesting if I'd actually straight after that series, after that match, came back to Australia. But I actually went straight from Bangladesh to England because I was fulfilling my commitment with Yorkshire.
Okay.
And I remember...
As a top order batter.
So I turn up, my first training session with Yorkshire, we're playing against Warwickshire at Edgbaston. I go into bat for my first bat. This is literally a few days after I scored a double 100.
Yeah.
Couldn't hit a ball off the square, right? The boys are all looking at each other going, did that actually happen? And then we went, the first night I was with the Yorkshire boys, we went to the Walkabout pub in Birmingham.
An Aussie pub.
Guess what's up on the screen, right? They replay my 200,
how
right?
good.
And I'm just there, all the Yorkshire boys are just looking at me, and then all the Aussies in the bar are just looking at me, and I'm just standing there going, oh, God, this is just bizarre. It was just really weird. But nah, look, I look back, I still, it's 19 years ago now. And to say I've got a test match double 100 is still ridiculous in my own head to say.
That's brilliant.
Because I always prided myself. I was a bowler,
Yes.
but I'm almost remembered for a double 100.
I think you are.
But the most proud achievement I have is, taking wickets for Australia and winning test matches and winning test series. That's what I hang my hat on. Yes, that was great. That was my last test match. And this is where I finished my story, the moral of the story. Averaged 245 with the bat that series. Averaged 11 with the ball. Man of the match. Man of the series. Never played again. You know what the moral of the story is?
What's the moral?
Don't run out your captain. But I had a really great moment at the end of that test series. Gilly was the custodian of the team song, and he allowed me to lead it. And we've never spoken about it, but I suspect Gilly knew, because I certainly had that feeling that this was the last time I was going to be with the Australian team.
Just injuries and...
No, I just felt, because I was there as a replacement player.
Okay, yeah,
right. And, obviously the great Glenn McGrath was away. I think Casper was unavailable. These guys were ahead of me and stuff. And I think I had a sense that I remember sitting down just thinking, this is it. And I reckon Gilly sensed that. We've never actually spoken about it, but that's why I reckon he gave me the honour of leading the team song. And it was a wonderful way. I reflected on it after, and I thought that's just the most wonderful way to go out. If I never play again, which I didn't for Australia, and to be honest, it was probably the right time. I think if I was a selector, having been in coaching roles and selection roles, I would have made the same call. Because it was funny, because Andrew Hilditch a few months later rang me because they were picking the squad for the Ashes in 06-07, right? So that was April 06, and then for November 06-07. So Andrew Hilditch, selector, rings me. Said, Jason, I've got some bad news. We've named an extended squad of 15, 16 for the Ashes leading into the summer. Unfortunately, you haven't made it. I'm just on the phone. I thought I could have a bit of fun here. I said, has this got anything to do with my last test series? I was man of the match, man of the series. and Digger was just silent on the phone. Right?
What can you say?
And then I just, mate, relax. It's okay. I get it. I understand. It's fine. And then I could hear this audible on the end of the phone, because it was clear he didn't want to, it wasn't a call he was looking forward to making. And look, I understand it, because I've been a selector myself, and, you have to make those calls. But look, great way to finish my test career. So, yeah, all good.
See, your test career finishes, and this is what I'm fascinated by some of the places you've coached.
Yep.
2010, and Loza told me a little bit about how rough and ready it was when you go to coach Zimbabwe. Mm-hmm. So the great thing about the game that you've been part of for so long is it's truly international, and it's played in all sorts of different parts of the world. And I know you're a very sort of global operator. Tell me about... You've come from probably at that stage, alongside England, the best funded cricket program in the world, yep. And then you're in Zimbabwe. What was it like? Yeah,
so I actually coached a team in Zimbabwe, not the national team. It was the Midwest Rhinos,
yes,
based in a place called Kwekwe.
Which is where?
Right in the middle, the Midlands of Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And Kwekwe was given the name Kwekwe, spelled Kwekwwe. It was named after the sound the frogs make. Huh. Yeah, so that's why
beautiful country, Zimbabwe.
It's lovely. And it was a small town. Had a big high density area. It has a big high density area, Mbizo. But yeah, Harare, Kwekwe Sports Club. Yeah, that's where the team was based. Yeah, I learnt a lot. I learned a lot about people probably more than out and out coaching. How to sort of manage people, I suppose, and manage a program. That was
how different was it? Like you were picking these blokes up on the way to training and stuff.
At times, yeah. I remember we because the way I'd structure training, we'd sort of train in the morning. We would do sort of nets and fielding in the nets in the morning. Then we'd have a lunch break, and then we'd do fielding and fitness in the afternoon. And I knew a lot of the guys didn't earn a lot of money. Like some of the guys were on like $150 a month.
Wow.
And their contracts were 7 months long. That's all. Huh. That was their annual salary, right? So they're obviously looking to save money wherever they can. So a lot of them would actually skip meals. So I remember sitting down just going, how can I expect that? If I know the chances are they're not going to eat in the morning, then they'll train. I'll probably not eat at lunch. Then how can I expect them to train properly? Mm. So I just ended up, my wife and I, we went to the supermarket. We grabbed like half a dozen loaves of bread. We grabbed a lot of fruit. We grabbed cordials and stuff like that. And we just big conga line, and we just made all these sandwiches and stuff. Yeah, and we did that and brought them to the ground, and so lunchtime, boys had an hour off. I said, boys, we've got food here, because the franchise couldn't afford to put any food on. So we just did that. And because if we didn't do it, training would have been a complete waste of time, Howie. You know what it's like. If you haven't eaten, like, you just can't function. So that was just one example. But I do remember one day, like, I was driving to training. It's probably about an hour or 45 minutes before training, driving through the main street of Kwekwe. And a lot of Zimbabweans at the time, obviously, there was a lot of issues with the banks and money and things like that.
Hyperinflation.
Yeah, so the US dollar was being used then.
Yeah.
So players, like, everyone was getting paid. So anyone in Zimbabwe basically got paid into their bank account. They'd go to the bank straight away.
We had to
line up and draw it out.
Because
they didn't know if the bank would actually have the money. So they'd line. So I'm driving down the street, and I'm looking. There's a line up outside the bank. It's about 150 metres long, and our training kit was red at the time. So I'm seeing these red shirts sort of dotted along the line. Oh, there's our wiki. There's our opening bowler. There's our opening batter. They're not getting to training on time because they're quite rightly.
Yeah.
They're in the environment they're in. Having that money in their hand is more important than
absolutely
being on time at training. So, and me being a real stickler for time and stuff with training, that was a challenge for me. But I had to accept I was in a completely different environment. So I learnt a lot about that, and about being flexible and being a bit understanding of where you are. And so it was a pretty humbling experience, to be perfectly honest.
You had an extraordinary coaching journey. You obviously did well in England. You took the Strikers to their first title. We'll get to South Australia before I wind up with you and them winning the Shield. But then you were given the job, which is seen... It's an interesting job when you take over as coach of Pakistan, because there's, rightly or wrongly, there's a perception that Pakistani cricket administration can be a little bit hit and miss. I think it's probably the best way to say it. So you take over as coach of Pakistan. I don't know. What happened? In your words, and this is where we're talking about, we talked about it at various times. I remember having a conversation with you at, I think it was Perth Airport, and you were explaining to me some of the stuff behind the scenes. What is it like? First, like, tremendous privilege to be coach of such a proud, wonderful cricketing nation. Yep,
absolute privilege, and I was incredibly grateful for the opportunity. You get sold the dream. I was a red ball coach, Gary Curson, white ball coach. So that's where I started to have some questions. Gary came up with this really good idea about a connection camp, which basically means everyone get together, from the board, administrators, players, coaches, from everyone in Pakistan cricket. Can we come together and just share each other's experiences and stories and try to understand everyone else's roles in that, and come together and have some sort of... Do you know what I mean? Just have...
Well, externally, that's exactly what you're looking and think is what Pakistan need.
So I flew from Australia. Gary's flown from South Africa. We've got people flying from everywhere coming to Lahore, and the chairman, Mohsen Naqvi, is based in Lahore, but he dialed in on Zoom.
Oh, he didn't come.
He didn't come.
And you come from Australia.
And Gary came from South Africa, and he was on the Zoom and all chatting, and he said something, and then and it just, I don't know, it just that was a start for Gary and I both kind of felt, chairman can't even sort of drive 20 minutes to be here. That was a little bit unusual, we thought, but the connection camp, we thought we making some headway, and particularly with the players.
You had success with them, no?
Yeah, we won a test series against England after losing the first test, and they...
Extraordinary test series win.
Yeah, I got a text after the first test loss that a new selection panel had been picked, and they're picking the squad for the next test. Head coaches are no longer involved at all in selection.
This via text?
Group text.
Not even a personal text.
No. And then so that happened. Wicket was completely scraped with nails and stuff to make it look old.
Really?
Yeah.
Scraped nails.
I saw him do it.
So it would turn.
Yeah.
That's
It was like this, and then it's like corrugated iron, and this. Oh, it was just scraping.
Really?
Yeah. And that was on the insistence of the selectors. I loved working with the players. They were great.
They seem very friendly customers.
Lovely people, really respectful. But you get a sense, right? And like Tim Nielsen was my assistant, and one of the reasons that I didn't go is because they just told him he was no longer required. There was no communication to me, not even a phone call or so to say, oh look, the board, we've had a think and we can't afford to have this assistant coach, or we can't do this or that. It was just Tim got a message saying you're no longer required.
That's it.
And I had no communication. You're just getting rid of a senior assistant coach, like with no communication with the head coach. What's going on? Like it felt like they were trying to get me out. I always got a sense though, with some of the players, you just felt that they knew it was probably going to be short term.
Okay.
Like, well, so they probably don't want to get closer because they've had 8 coaches in 2 years or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So most of the players are unbelievable. They'll like embrace you, get behind you, and want to learn as much as you can. Some are a little bit standoffish, and that's completely understandable because they're probably thinking, mate, you're not going to be here in 2 months anyway.
Mm.
And that's a perfectly reasonable assumption to have based on the history of Pakistan cricket. So if the PCB can get their ducks in a row and get the structures in place, they could be anything. They could be anything. And I know, speaking to other coaches that have been there in the past, like Jeff Lawson, Dave Watmore, they say exactly the same thing.
Mm.
The talent is incredible. Just need some good governments, good pathways. And if they have that, they could be the best team in the world. Yeah.
Before I take up too much of your time, you talked about some of your test cricket. You played in arguably one of, if not the greatest Australian test team of all time, and one of, if not arguably the greatest Australian bowling attack of all time. Like, the work you got to do with Glenn McGrath, this is just the bowlers, with Glenn McGrath and Shane Warne, statistically Australia's 2 greatest wicket takers. Like, what do those 2 blokes mean to you? What was it like bowling, McGrath with the new ball, you with the new ball? Brett came in, Andy Bickle came in, you mentioned Paul Rifle, but then you had Warne as well. Like, that's a golden age of Australian cricket that you were part of, Diz.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be part of it and to be able to open the bowling with Glenn. I'd always try to ask him if I could bowl with the breeze or downhill. And he would say, I'm the senior bowler, which is fine.
Fair enough.
Well, I always had the theory, Howie, 50% of the overs have got to be bowled from an end from the other end. So I might as well do it.
That was you.
That's okay. That's fine. I used to get followed up. Like Glenn would finish, he'd bowl a long spell. I'd bowl maybe a spell, shorter one, and then I'd have a longer one down. So I got my chance to do that. But it was fine. It didn't bother me in the slightest. I loved it. But to play those 2 guys specifically, I've always said there's like 2 guys that, one is my super confident bloke that I've ever come across, and the other, while he was confident, he still needed a bit of reassurance and a bit of love. And Glenn was always the real confident. So I use this example. If you went up to Pidge and say, mate, well bowled, mate, that was great, he'd just turn to you and go, yeah, I know. Like, not in an arrogant way. No. He just, mate, I practice, I prepare well, yeah. Here you go, thanks, but yeah, I know. Warney would always be going around seeking, how do you think I bowl?
Yeah.
Like, what do you reckon? I said, mate, you're the king, mate.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a gun. And I reckon I caught Warney in a vulnerable moment one day during our career, and he just made this comment. He just said, you know what, Diz, at some point, doesn't matter who you are, everyone needs a little bit of love.
Mm.
And I just thought about, I remember going away thinking about that. I'm thinking, that's Shane Warne. And, that just got me thinking about, how can you, you've just got to be a bit more aware of your teammates and stuff. So it's hard to describe, but, I always made a point of just give him a pat on the back. It's going, King, this is your dance floor now. Right? It's time to win us a game. You know, just little comments like that. You know, you didn't need to do that with McGrath because he was ready to go. He was confident because confidence comes from evidence. And you know, Pidgey, he just came and just kept bashing that wicket. I remember asking Glenn for advice once about bowling. He said, "Diz, I'm not the quickest. I don't really seam it or swing it, but I know I can hit that spot on the wicket 95 times out of 100. And with my height and I can, you know, my demeanour, I know I can take wickets." And he was just so confident in his own ability. It was quite infectious, you know. Whereas Warnie was a genius, obviously. And he was confident. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he wasn't confident at all, because he was. But he just, every now and again, just needed a bit of a pat on the back and just a reminder, you know. So it was interesting to see how two of the legends of the game operated, yeah.
We sat down with Warnie at Fox. It was around the COVID time, and Fox just said, just go and have a chat with him. Fox Cricket was probably a couple of years in, and we'll make a show just on some Warnie memories. And it became quite an extended conversation because, as you've seen here, once I start asking questions, I can't stop.
Yeah.
And Warnie's son, Jackson, who's doing amazing things now with the Warnie Foundation.
He really is.
He was in the studio. I think it was the first time I met Jacko. And it ended up becoming what was called a week with Warnie, where they just ran sort of 5 half hours, the chat with Warnie. And, you know, we'd stop filming every 20 minutes and, you know, we're going to talk about this next or we'll talk about that. And it's funny what you said about that because he would – so Jacko's what, 18? It's the king. And, you know, we'd have a little break and he'd say to Jacko things like, "Oh, how do you think the answer was on that?" Or, "How do you think it's going, mate?" Or, "Oh, mate, do you think my hair looks okay?" And I was blown away that this bloke that I looked at as just bulletproof, a Superman, was aware but wanting to get feedback from his own son who is just finding his way in life at that stage. It blew, so I can completely relate to what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
How did his passing affect you?
Well, I remember exactly where I was. I was coaching South Australia. We were preparing for a Shield game. We were in Brisbane, and I'd gone to bed, and my phone pinged. It was about midnight, and it was my wife. She rang me and said, "What's up?" She said, "Turn the TV on. It's about Shane." So I jumped out of bed and I've gone, and I just didn't sleep the rest of the night. I just saw all these news reports, and it was just horrible. I remember just in a bit of a daze and then going to the ground, and Andy Bickle was on the coaching staff of Queensland. And I just remember going up to him and hugging him, and we were both in tears and just in disbelief. Like, we just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, mate.
It was just, very surreal. Yeah. Yeah, very surreal. Yeah,
it's hard to know what to say, isn't it? It's, you know, last week was 3 years since Roy's passed as well, and another great teammate of yours. I know it doesn't make any sense, but when you look at these blokes, and Roy as well, big, strong, invincible character, it doesn't actually seem to be possible that they couldn't be with us any longer. I think
it's weird. It's weird that they're not here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I must admit, I do enjoy seeing when Fox put on the stuff every now and again on social media, just some of the Royisms. And like, it's.
Well, they put that one out last week when he was talking about the bales and the centre of gravity. It's like, Roy, what are you talking about?
Gilly was losing it.
Yeah.
And,
it brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, though.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Like, a lot of joy to a lot of people.
Absolutely. You know, I've been obviously chatting with Flem and Herbie Elliott last night, and we were sort of reflecting on telling a few Warnie stories from the Vic days.
Well, we should have had the bloody pod microphones in for that conversation, Tiz.
Oh, mate, well, Flem was talking about their under-19 tour to the West Indies.
Right.
And Warnie was on that. And he talked about, the way he explained it, he said Warnie was ordinary at the time. Like, he couldn't land her, it was average, but it was almost like the way Flem explained it was quite funny. He said he almost acted like a really famous person before he was famous. So, he's strutting around, he's kind of carrying on. But he had nothing to back it up from a cricketing sense. That was the way Flem does it. It was quite funny. And but
maybe that self-belief was why he became so great.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt. No doubt.
Diz, you've been great with your time. We always finish this podcast the same way.
Yep. No stress.
That you've had tremendous success on your sporting field. And I've said this nearly 250 times now, but I repeat it every time because I think it's nice for the guests to know we have a lot of children listen to this show.
Yep.
Often on their way to training camps, or especially kids in the country where they've got a 3-hour trip with mum and dad to footy or cricket or piano practice or whatever it may be, and they are hoping to achieve something. You have achieved some extraordinary things and have much ahead of you in cricket and in coaching. What advice would you give to those youngsters out there that want something to hold on to, that are trying to get some success in their life?
Yeah, I think belief is the most powerful tool you have, I reckon. You got to believe in yourself. You got to back yourself in. I always talk about giving yourself the best chance, which means just doing whatever you can to be the very best. And it is as simple as that. But you've got to have that desire, that want, but that innate belief, belief in yourself and belief in your ability, and then what's going to allow you to go from that belief to actually doing, is the work that you do here. And, so that's probably as simple as I can put it.
Diz, you're a star. Thanks so much, mate. It's been great to chat with you about cricket and life, and also about Grecian 2000.
Thank you.
Well done.
No worries. Thank you.